Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupree. Today is a little bit of a different hour. Today is the hour of the 11 o'clock hour, and we have a free for all, which means that I can take it a little easier today. Um, oops, I see we don't have images here for the YouTube folks. I apologize. Sorry, folks. I hope we'll remedy that shortly. Here we go. So now, this is the free for all, and we have a bunch of really cool things here today. First of all, thanks for coming. I have a bunch of new people. Welcome, 9 Dimitri 9. I hope your brother 8 Dimitri 8 is doing well. Katsumi 611. I hope your sister Katsumi 411 is also doing well. Valencia Sky Dancer. I'm sorry, my humor has not gotten better since yesterday. The Resistor, Isabel, Elian, Monkey, Shiloh, Little Brat, Jessica. Maybe the camera can kind of go over the folks. Stranger. Did I mention Little Brat, the SL Book Club manager in the corner there? Of course. Did I mention Elian? Did I mention Teddy? Yes, I did. And Shyla, of course. Now, today, free for all. In the back here, behind me, is an image of a young fella with a Fender Strat and a Frank Zappa shirt. It's actually the Frank Zappa Ensemble Moderne Yellow Shark shirt from the Yellow Shark show, which was, of course, a show of Zappa's classical music performed by the Ensemble Moderne, and that was just couple of weeks before he passed away, 1993. I was at one of those shows in Frankfurt. He didn't conduct it anymore because he had to fly back already. It was conducted by Peter Rundle from Ensemble Moderne. Was absolutely amazing. Why is that image there behind me? Well, the reason for this image behind me is the same reason for the image right next to it, to the left of it, which a bunch of really scary looking. I mean, people know that I'm a big Frank Zappa fan. People go like, "What are you talking about, Frank Zappa? Is this the Second Life Music Club?" No, it's not. We'll get there. So next to the image is next to the photo of a young Draxtor in Encino at the time, 95, is a picture of the GTOs, the girls together outrageously, a group of groupies that were hanging out in the 60s in Laurel Canyon in the hippie and freak scene. And they were, runaways for the most part from sometimes abusive religious fundamentalist families. And they gathered around there. At the time, Frank Zappa lived in a log cabin in Laurel Canyon, and he produced this band. They had no musical training. Some would say they had no musical talent either. I think they did, and Zappa saw that too. The album is called Permanent Damage, and it's awesome. And the reason why this photo is here, because I got this photo from Pauline Butcher. Who is Pauline Butcher? Pauline Butcher was a secretary, and I'm going to put another image here. This is an image from 1969 of Pauline Butcher in a typist pool. Now, what is a typist pool, my young friends? There's a bunch of ladies that were typing stuff up before the computer age, and Pauline was a typist, 21-year-old typist in London, and they typed up stuff for sometimes famous people, for politicians and diplomats. They were coming through town, rock stars, etc. And she got a call one time uh, to go to a hotel to type something up for a guy by the name of Frank Zappa. And she went there, and it changed her life. Zappa asked her to come to, or offered her to come with him to Hollywood, and she went there, and she was basically his personal secretary for about 3 years. And Pauline Butcher is how old is she? 82 maybe? I can't calculate. Can somebody calculate when you were 21 in 1969? How old are you now, please? Um, Here is a picture of Pauline with the folks who lived at Zappa's house, known as the band The Mothers of Invention. And she wrote a book called Freak Out, which is absolutely amazing. It's basically her autobiography. It's a fish out of water story. It's a story of coming of age. Um, Katsumi calculated 75 years old. Thank you. Uh, yes. See, I can't calculate. My dad was born in 41. She was born in 48, right? So anyway, Pauline Butcher was thrust into this scene from a modest working class British background into this scene of crazy people, of geniuses, of free love, whatever that means, and also of a very very open, welcoming world in Hollywood at the time that fundamentally changed through the Charles Manson murders, which she also writes about in the book. And so the book is I was blown away by this book. Of course, I'm a big Frank Zappa fan, and you get a lot of insight into his sort of uh, you know view on life, on social issues, the contradictions of Zappa himself as himself coming from kind of a conservative background, but wanting to kind of leave that behind. His own contradictions in terms of the business side of him, but it's much more than that. It's one of those things that really captures the texture of a time that is no longer, right? The 60s, then going on into the 70s, with all these crazy happenings, but also these contradictions, the business side, the 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 apolitical side of Zappa. And I always saw him as sort of a kind of a social revolutionary as well. But a lot of cameos in this book. Mick Jagger shows up, David Bowie, Rod Stewart, and all are sort of orbiting around Zappa coming in and out with different how should I put it, awareness of political issues, um, and Pauline also again growing up being very young, going in there, and then um, she actually has to stay back in London because of a medical issue, and that's pretty much it. So it's 3 years of her life. She stayed in touch with Zappa longer. There's a great interview from 1988 as well with her for the BBC. So this is a fantastic book. It's a fantastic book, and not only into the mind of one of the greatest American composers of the 20th century, no doubt. And please don't at me with like, oh, Zappa, wasn't he a novelty musician with Valley Girl and a couple other hits? No, he was one of the greatest American composers, period. End of story. I don't want to relitigate that. Thankfully, 20 years after his death, he is, I think, much more appreciated by actually the established sort of contemporary classical music world. But anyway, Pauline, long story. I contacted her. You want to come on the Second Life Book Club? And she goes like, sure. And I go, okay, cool. What about the computer? She said, what about what do you mean, what about the computer? I go like, well, we have to kind of like figure this out if that works, if your computer works. And I think she didn't really understand what is involved. I think she may have assumed that this is kind of a Zoom call situation or whatever. And then I'll try to explain it. Let's see here. Here's another photograph. This is inside the log cabin. This was before Zappa moved into his. He bought a house in Laurel Canyon, which is now was sold to Lady Gaga a couple of years ago. I was actually at that house interviewing Dweezil Zappa back in '99, but this is not at the house. This is still at the log cabin. This photograph. But anyway, Pauline, very nice. So email back and forth, and I say, we need to do a tech check. And she's like, why do we need a tech check? Are you? And at one point, she said, "Are you coming to my house to film me for this, to interview me?" I said, "No," because I was talking about should we do the log cabin? Should we recreate the log cabin, or do you want to create the typist pool, open office or something like that? And she was like, "What do you mean? Are you are we walking through London and going to my old typing pool?" And said, "No." And then she emailed me her phone number and I called her, says, "Oh, that is very quick." And said, "Yeah, I just wanted to clarify what we're actually doing. We're in this virtual world and we can recreate anything. We can create the Zappa house or the log cabin or the typing pool or this and that." And I think then she understood and she sent me a whole bunch of really cool photos. I didn't upload them all. Um, of herself from the 60s, from not only when she was already in Hollywood, but from before, like with really cool, these clothes and stuff, these kind of overcoats. And so Isabelle Charren is going to be tasked to create that avatar. Anyway, so that's that. Couple more things, and then we'll go to Jessica Jeanvive, who has reissued some of her books and has new books, and she'll talk about that. But it occurred to me that JetGPT is all the rage now these days, and our own Isabelle Charren put prompted JetGPT to write a story. And I forgot if I talked about this. I put it on the backboard. I'm going to read it. It's really not well formatted, so I'm going to read it. Um, so I don't know what prompt Isabel put in there, but something like, JetGPT, can you tell me a story about Draxtor and the Second Life book club? And JetGPT said, of course I can. So this is the fun side of AI. There's a lot of dark side to it, and we'll talk about that later as well. So here we go. I'm going to read this. Draxtor Dupre was a self-proclaimed book nerd who lived and breathed books. Now that's already wrong because it's in the past tense, right? He was a regular at the Second Life Book Club, an online community of book lovers who met in virtual reality to discuss their favorite books. At one of the club's meetings, the topic of books versus television came up and Drexter couldn't help but share his thoughts. "Books, my friends, are the true masters of storytelling," he proclaimed. "In a book, the reader can imagine their own world, their own characters, but in television, the world is already built for you, and the characters are just actors following a script." The group chuckled at Drexter's passionate words. "And let's not forget," he added with a smirk, "books don't have commercial breaks. Imagine if you had to stop reading War and Peace every 15 minutes to watch a commercial for laundry detergent." That's pretty good. The group laughed and nodded in agreement. "And what about cliffhangers?" Drexter continued. "In a book, you can read as fast or slow as you want, but in television, you have to wait a whole week to find out what happens next. It's torture." Well, not with binging, right? The group nodded in agreement, and one member added, "And books don't have cancellation threat hanging over them. You can always finish a book no matter what." Drexter beamed delight at the camaraderie and love for books shared among the group. "Books may be old-fashioned, but they will never go out of style," he declared, and with that, the group continued their discussion, sharing their favorite books and the magic they bring to their lives. I think somebody has an open mic. Please close it. I think it's Stranger, but I'm going to ask Stranger in a little bit what he thinks the issue of AI is, but not right now. Hold on. Let me say one thing here. Um, because AI is also on the mind of Little Brett, regular book club audience member here, valued member of the community. And now, Little Brett, my understanding is you talk to my AI, which is a thing on Snapchat. I don't know what Snapchat is because I'm old. The latest hip thing that I know is called, what is it called? Facebook or something. But anyway, so my AI seems to speak a foreign language. Arrangemente blir ledet af Draxter Despres en quien Second Life Scapper og podcaster og gir del caterne multigeten itila ik discutere bokker met forvatere. So I don't know what that means. But then you, I guess your real life name may be Meg, or maybe that's your sister's, you said English. Then the my AI said, sure, we can switch to English. What would you like to talk about? And you say, or this Meg person, the Second Life Book Club with Dragster. And then my AI says, I've heard of the Second Life Book Club with Draxtor. It's a virtual book club event that takes place in the popular online game Second Life. See, a big mistake, my AI. Gotta teach that little AI thingy. The event is hosted by Draxtor Dupree, a well-known Second Life creator and podcaster. I canceled my own podcast a couple of years ago, and gives participants the opportunity to discuss books with authors and other readers from around the world. It's an exciting way to connect with other book lovers across borders and cultures. That's really great. I like that interpretation. That is spot on. The top language is Norwegian. Now, little Brett, with all due respect, I think the top language in the world is German. Uh, but
You know what I mean.
do I?
Yeah, you do.
Okay, I do. Yes, the language at the top of this excerpt. Well, uh,
What I
uh,
find funny though is that my AI knew so much about you though.
yeah. Well, there is some I mean, there's a lot written from the Second Life community, and uh, there used to be a lot of actually Second Life bloggers always, especially in RP and others, when I did the World Maker series, they would always kind of analyze and comment on that on their own blogs. So there's a lot that we can scrape off, and that doesn't surprise me that much. But what surprises me is that um, that it knows about the book club. So that's interesting. So yeah. Now, any more comments, little Brett? Are you going to ask? Maybe you should ask your AI what my favorite book is. I wonder what it says. If it doesn't say David Foster Wallace Infinite Jest, I will delete that app. Das Leben der anderen. Wait a minute. Who is Boardroom Catering? There's a person with the name Boardroom Catering. I don't see that person. Oh, Boardroom Catering is here in the back. Interesting Second Life name. Do we know each other? Dice Ace Dice. Hello. Oh, can the camera go back there? There's a bunch of people. Boardroom Catering is here with a really cool vehicle and a marshmallow gun. And Tabby. Das Leben der anderen is not my favorite book. It's great. It's also a film with Martina Gedeck. I like Martina Gedeck. I like The Wall with Martina Gedeck. But Boardroom Catering, welcome to to the Second Life Book Club. Is the camera going in there? Let's see here.
The my I asked my AI what your favorite book is, and it says, "I'm not sure. Have you asked him?"
Okay, so now it's your chance, little Brett, to tell your AI that you did ask me, and my answer was Infinite Jest. Infinite. Type it in. So then next time somebody asks any AI, I would like to have this confirmed. Okay. So Boardroom Catering wants to inform us that he's here with Tabby, but Tabby is not his girlfriend. That's cool. It's not. And Dex Euromat is here as well. Dex Euromat is here at the. He's drinking something. Now next topic, and we'll have a tight show today. So Boardroom Catering says it's sadly that Tabby's not his girlfriend. Well, we'll see what develops. Welcome, Dex Euromet. So real quick, I want to talk about Beyond Star. Real quick, and then one more thing, and then I'm gonna read from the AI book, and then it's all Jessica's. Now, I released a video yesterday with the title Comics Made in Second Life, and this is a comic called Beyond Star, which was made by Diafka here in Second Life using Second Life avatars and everything made in Second Life, and he turned it into a really, really compelling comic book. And it's there's 7 issues out there, and I encouraged him actually to put this out on Blurb and he did, because we wanted to have one issue for the video, right? And then he actually did the other two. So that is very cool. I put the link in the local chat. Actually, my book club manager did. Welcome, Kitten Duel on the YouTubes. Welcome. And welcome everybody else who's watching on YouTube. Please type in your name on YouTube and let us know what you think the issues of AI are, because that's the next topic. But so real briefly, was just this about Beyond Star. Please check out the Beyond Star comic books. I think this is really, really cool. What the Alpha is doing. There's other people in Second Life that actually use Second Life as basically like a studio to create comic books. The reason why I profiled Diafka is because he contacted me. I hope that is also, because some people go like, yeah, why are they covering this person and not that person? Yeah, I do reach out and I have certain topics that interest me, and I reach out to specific people around topics or people that I hear about. But a lot of people come to me. This is really my job. It's an open door policy. And the good thing is I'm kind of interested in everything, which can be a little overwhelming as well. So now, I'd like to ask Stranger Nightfire, putting Stranger Nightfire on the spot. What do you think, in your mind, is the biggest problem of the of AI, or the embracing of AI worldwide, or in the US, or wherever? Let's just say, globally, except for the fact that in the Biden administration, Kamala Harris is put in charge. Let's just keep that out of the discussion right now. What do you think, other than that, which you indicated earlier is an issue? Are there any other issues with AI?
Well, actually, this is one of those questions. It's so broad and huge. Where do you start? But it's like, in the short run,
True.
I'd say even probably as we're speaking, people are losing their jobs. There's that
Yep.
whole aspect of it.
Yep.
And
But why? But let me see. This is great. But why is that AI's fault?
I'm not even sure I understand the question in that case.
No, I mean, you're saying, right now the issue is
the
that
people
losing.
use. All right, it's the fault of people using AI to replace people's jobs. Okay, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
would choose not to do. But the another problem with it is, it's the state of the art right now is such. I know one person who is trying to use it to at least give them the beginnings of like academic papers they were writing and all, and they'd asked it to give references, and it made up references.
Yeah.
References were fake that AI was giving them. But so those kind of problems. But I guess the thing that a lot of people, when asked this kind of question, a lot of the discussion these days begins with a sort of laugh and derisive dismissal of the what is it called? Was it Skynet or whatever it is in the Terminator movie?
Right. Yep.
Oh no, that's just silly. Well, no, it isn't. In the long run, that has to be considered too. Some people throw up the Isaac Asimov, the laws of robotics. We'll just put in. We'll control the AIs. Humans are in charge. But it's funny that they should bring up Asimov, because, like in the iRobot stories, more than not of them are about how it didn't work. He himself just said, okay, we could make these rules, but among other things, AIs would find their ways around them.
Stranger, thank you. These are great points, and I apologize deeply for just putting you on the spot with, as you pointed out, a incredibly broad question. But you brought up a few things that I think are important. I will attempt now in the next 10 minutes or so, and then we'll turn the show over to Jessica, why I believe AI is incredibly problematic. I will read a little excerpt of this absolutely fascinating must-read book that I have in front of me, Resisting AI by Dan McQuillan. And I want to start with um, a little a more concrete question. Uh, what would you say? Have you been denied services? And I don't mean um, services of well, we can't serve you this burger right now. You must leave because you have no shoes and no shirt, and it says no shoes, no shirt, no service. I mean, have you been denied social services of any kind, assistance of any kind? Do you know anybody who has been denied any kind of services? Have you been denied credit? Have you been denied an extension of I don't know, your overdraft situation at your bank? Um, have you have you been issued fees that you felt are unfair? Um, any types of things, and have you thought like, okay, so why is this happening, and have you inquired and have you been given the answer, well, because this is how we do things here. And I don't know what Shiloh is what that replies. But anyway, the reason why I'm asking this question is my answer is yes, and I don't know anybody who has not been in that situation. And the reason why I bring this up is to suggest that we already live in a world where AI is controlling a lot of interactions with public services. AI is just another name for algorithm, and algorithms are uh, very, very non-transparent. So what we have now is a situation where there is incredibly opaque um, processes determining who gets what. This can be a credit, this can be a medication, this can be um, social welfare type of assistances. Um, there are two great books written about predictive policing. One is called Weapons of Math Destruction. There are several algorithms that police use in the United States and several other countries that predict the likelihood of people committing crimes based on statistics. Now, did you know that the field of statistics was developed by a fan of eugenics? Do you know what eugenics is? Maybe somebody can define it here in the local chat. Um, so I know I'm going a little bit all over the place, but we'll read a little chapter here from the Resisting AI book. The big point here is, and the point of the book, and I'm so happy that somebody is really focusing on the main issue, is that we live in a world of incredible inequality. And the inequality is the issue of inequality is, as far as I'm concerned, not really being addressed, or so, well, it's being addressed. Well, it's really bad, but it's not being really tackled. Matter of fact, there seems to be more austerity in Britain. There is constant threats of defunding the national health system. Services are getting less and less and less for seniors and other people who deserve it. We had an author on who was delivering food, and to people during COVID who were on social welfare, and they were not able to pay for their food. In my hometown of Munich, there's tens of thousands of people who have to go to the food bank to get their daily food. Now, people would say, well, there are social services available. But what if I were to tell you that these social services are not being paid out because of algorithms telling the human being who is uh, handling these algorithms, who goes into the office and looks at a screen that tells that person, well, person XYZ does not qualify for service XYZ, that person, um, that human being, cannot override those decisions. So this is not the future, this is the present. And those algorithms are based on something called general intelligence, which was um, developed uh, by a guy by the name of Charles Spearman, who was a eugenicist. Now, again, what is eugenics? It's basically race science. It's basically the quote unquote science that believes that there are that different races have different capacities for intelligence. Um, and both big AI companies, OpenAI and the other one, Google, the name escapes me now, they're both advocating for something called artificial general intelligence, which is to find a baseline of intelligence whereupon you build, and this general intelligence can be surpassed by other intelligences. So as I'm as I'm talking, I'm realizing it's actually I should probably read because it's much better formulated in the book. The problem with these systems is that they are hierarchical systems, and they are systems that discriminate, and this discrimination cannot be overridden by the human being. So while ChatGPT is a lot of fun to play around with, um, the issue of jobs being, that we're losing jobs, uh, that is an issue. But the other issue, the bigger issue, is to codify social inequalities. And let me read to you. 1 second, where did here we go. The kind of social divisions that are amplified by AI have been put under the spotlight by COVID-19. The pandemic is a stress. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, this is the wrong chapter. Here we go. States of exception. There we go. Everybody with me? Just I'm gonna skim for the comments here. I'm sorry, I apologize. Valencia says this creeping me out. I'm mixed race, so I don't know how I would fit in. Yeah, that's a big issue, and there's a lot of great reportage written about this. How the facial recognition, that's in the book as well. Facial recognition is basically not recognizing African Americans because it was coded. This is another issue because it was coded by a white person. That stuff may change, but the issue, this is not what I'm going to read, but there is an issue of an African American neighborhood where services were denied because it was looked at by the algorithm that they were using too much money, and that was based on a faulty on a statistic that was interpreted in a very binary way. But let me read for a second. Shiloh, that's not what I'm suggesting. That's pretty much what everybody's suggesting. So let's see here. So let me just read this because there's a lot of comments here. Katsumi, don't go on that pee break or the AI will punish you. Wonder maybe I should read this one example of the in the UK here, which is a very concrete. No, let's just do the states of exception. Here we go. AI's facility for exclusion does not only extend scarcity, but in doing so triggers a shift towards states of exception. The general idea of state of exception has been a part of legal thinking since the Roman Empire, which allowed the suspension of the law in times of crises. It is classically invoked via the declaration of martial law, or in our times through the creation of legal black holes like that of the Guantanamo Bay detention camp. The modern conception of the state of exception, or Ausnahmezustand, was introduced by German philosopher and Nazi Party member Carl Schmitt in the 1920s, who assigned to the sovereign the role of suspending the law in the name of the public good. The state of exception is a paradox because the law is used to invoke a space in which the law literally does not apply. In the previous chapters, we've covered some of the ways in which predictive statistical discrimination can prevent data subjects from accessing resources or rights, and does so in ways that evade existing legal protections. In other words, AI has an inbuilt tendency towards creating partial states of exception. AI is not only a technology that is impossible to properly regulate, but a mechanism for multiplying exceptions more widely. A state of exception can't be justified by legal and constitutional power, as that's exactly what it nullifies. Instead, it arises from constituent power, the power by which the legal framework itself is founded. According to philosopher Giorgio Agamben, our norms and rights are themselves rooted in a state of exception because they are constitutional and depend in turn on the constituent power. We are living in a kind of fiction, an existing state of emergency from which we cannot return directly to the state of law. As liberal regimes deliver decreasing returns, governments and powerful institutions are increasingly turning to states of exception as a solution to their declining legitimacy. These are not the product of dictatorship or tyranny, but operate from within apparently liberal and democratic governance. What we need to be alert for, according to Agamben, is not a confusion of legislative and executive powers, in other words, not a dictatorship per se, but the separation of law and the force of law. Applications of AI fit Agamben's criteria by being able to enforce exclusion while remaining opaque and outside discourse or regulation. People's lives can be impacted simply by crossing some statistical confidence limit, and they may not even know it. AI's actions of segregating and scarcifying can have the force of the law without being of the law and will create what we might call algorithmic states of exception. It won't be necessary for AI to explicitly construct a state of exception for it to have effect. An instructive comparison in Poland's so-called LGBTQ-free zones, where by the middle of 2020, municipalities and regions covering 1/3 of the country had adopted resolutions declaring themselves as being pro-family and free of LGBTQ ideology. Poland's ruling Law and Justice Party had declared LGBTQ rights an imported ideology, and party officials gave out medals to local politicians who supported the declarations, while the archbishop who compared LGBTQ people to a rainbow plague was applauded by the defense minister. Although largely symbolic in specifically legal terms, the Council of Europe Commissioner for Human Rights stated that far from being merely words on paper, these declarations directly impact the lives of LGBTQ people in Poland, while MEPs condemned the measures as part of a broader context of attacks against the LGBTQ community in Poland, which include growing hate speech by public and elected officials and public media. It's not hard to imagine how problematic technologies like AI-powered automated gender recognition, this is already happening, could amplify similar forms of chilling effect. Through the mutual reinforcement of encoded binaries in the algorithms and the ideological binaries of nationalist political movements. Now, this might be a little bit opaque here, or not opaque, maybe complex. Let me just briefly find this one example, very concrete example of algorithms gone wrong. Here we go. Ah, boy, I should have prepared this other read. Give me 1 second here. There was one here in the UK with a robo-debt. One consequence of the bureaucratic nature of AI will be the scaling of what philosopher Miranda Fricker refers to as epistemic injustice. This is a term she developed through analyzing the historical disempowerment of women when it came to challenging harassment and abuse, and refers in general to the way people are rendered unable to challenge injustice. One kind of epistemic injustice is testimonial injustice, where prejudices cause people to give a deflated level of credibility to a speaker's word. It's easy to see how this might apply where the assessment of an expert algorithm conflicts with the testimony of an already marginalized welfare applicant. The other kind of epistemic injustice is hermeneutical injustice, a kind of injustice in which someone is wronged specifically in her capacity as a knower. Fricker points to this as the kind of injustice experienced by just social groups who lack the resources to make sense of their own experience. AI contributes to hermeneutical injustice because the complexity and opacity of AI-driven interventions are inherent barriers to any independent effort at comparable sense making. Even where a data subject can get hold of his or her data, as Deliveroo drivers did via data protection legislation after the platform's algorithm falsely terminated them for fraud, this was in 2020, it tells them very little about how the system will judge them in relation to opaque correlations abstracted from data about thousands of other people. The widespread application of machine learning points to a growth in learned helplessness among data subjects who are unable to comprehend the decisions that are being made. This is I encourage people to get this book and read it from cover to cover because I should have started with explaining how AI works with correlation and not causality, which is one of the big problems. Dexurimed, I think that is Dexurimed is saying that happened to one guy. That is just not accurate. If you feel that there is no issue in Poland with discriminating against LGBTQ, that's another matter. But these LGBTQ zones, they do exist, and they are quite widespread and broadly accepted by public officials. Now, let's see here. Let's see. Let's turn it over to, oh, we have 20 minutes. Let's turn it over. And I'm sorry if I confused people with this book. There was a different excerpt, and I can't find it right now. There's a bunch of very, very concrete examples where austerity measures, especially in the UK, created really violent situations for certain people. I can't find the robo debt issue here. Sorry, here we go. This is let me just add this one thing here about robo debt, because I think this might illuminate. This was in Australia, sorry. Another prehension of bureaucratic AI is provided by the Australian government's robo-debt program. Powered by a simple algorithm, this system issued hundreds of thousands of erroneous debt notices to welfare recipients. The system averaged a person's income over the year, defining welfare as overpayments, even for periods where people with fluctuating incomes had literally no other money coming in. This is very interesting because this applies to everyone who doesn't have a regular income. So the robo-debt algorithm issued automated repayment demands based on these miscalculations. A significant feature of robo-debt was the way due process was inverted to place the legal burden of proof on the welfare recipient. Its calculation was treated as fact in law, and the alleged debtor was told to pay up unless they could provide exact paperwork going back up to 7 years, proving that the demand was an error. Its demands were passed to privatized debt collection agencies, which were paid on commission and unsurprisingly resorted to threats. The algorithm was weaponized by its fusion with the law and the mechanisms of enforcement. So here's the issue. This is well illustrated in this example. So there's an unfair, sort of brutal way, violent way to force people, marginalized people to act if they want to get public service, right? This is combined with existing enforcement structures that are not AI based, but they're used as a response. Plus, the enforcement is also privatized. So there's three issues basically. Shyla says, I think one difference between AI errors and human errors is that much more likely people will look into potential human error, while there is a presumption that computers do not make errors. Shyla, yes, but that is really not at the core of the issue. The issue is that existing biases are encoded, and then the human being who's supposed to have sort of the last decision making, they look at correlation based on bias in the binary code. It's not really about error. It's about violence and about discrimination that is already in existence in today's society, coded into a machine, and thereby, you're not incorrect with what you say here, Shyla, but it's much worse than that. It's not only an error. It's not even perceived as an error at all, because it's the power structure codifying a system that is not that has nothing to do with justice. So, Valencia, you can say anything here. You can say offensive stuff. Don't worry about it. Shiloh, I don't have Netflix, so I'm good. Let's Valencia, please do say that. That's actually also in the book, and there's the coders. Yes, absolutely. Valencia's right. It says coders belong to a certain demographic. Now they belong to a certain demographic, and also there is a certain, again, privilege. It's the exactly. Valencia says they have certain beliefs. And now, no matter what they ideologically believe, I mean, I'm ideologically opposed to the big sort of leaders in that pack. But even if I weren't, I would be very worried that the ideology that code is not neutral. Code is not fair. Code is, like everything else, laden with the ideology of the coder. So garbage in, garbage out. So yeah, Valencia is talking about lack of women in tech, and that's certainly true. But I can imagine, and there's many many examples of female coders who also have kind of a very, very problematic ideology in terms of long-termism and natalism. Again, you know, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, these people who are enormously powerful, they don't even hide the fact that they believe that certain people should procreate more than others, right? I mean, they explicitly say that. So I don't know. I don't think it's a crazy dystopian scenario of a future scenario where AI or an algorithm says, well, you shouldn't procreate because you're going to have some stupid kids, and we don't need more stupid kids. So assumptions and beliefs, I don't know if you can explain to me the difference, because to me, what Elon Musk says publicly, those are apart from being BS, those are also assumptions, but he believes them. So same thing. Anyway, let's turn it over to something more lighthearted. Jessica Genevieve has produced, and I'm gonna go off stage here. Jessica Genevieve has been doing a lot of stuff with her enterprise. Very enterprising. Jessica, please go on stage and tell us what you've been doing. Here we go. If Jessica, she's already on stage. Go ahead.
We hear me loud and clear?
Yes. So in the back here is Beware of the Cat, Tales from the Cat Shop, the University Cat, Jessica Genevieve. I thought you were going to be starting publishing under a different name.
I do. This is book number 5. This is the 3rd book in the Cybercat series, and the one that made the top 100. Some of you have read the first book. This is book number 3, and I started this in November for No Rye Thing What's It. I can never pronounce it. And it's just up on pre-order, and it gets published on June the 1st. So this is the University Cat. So I've got a bit of a reading for you.
You're reading from the University Cat?
I'm not. Oh, have I given you? No, I'm reading from Beware the Cat.
Good, because that's the book I have here. But wait a minute, hold on. But these are still published by Jessica Jean-Vive. But didn't you want to change everything to a different name?
No, I have 2 names. I have Jessica, which is for my fantasy books.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I have my real name, which are for my crime books. So there are now 5 novels out there, and this is the new one. So I'll tell you a bit about Penny. Penny is a cyber cat, and she was born in Second Life. That's where she started, and this is her 3rd adventure. So,
hold on, Jessica, before you start reading, and I'm the world's worst interviewer. People know that. But I'm now curious. Tell us a little bit about and we have the time. I know that the clock is ticking. It says 10 minutes. We'll go over a little bit. But before you read, can you talk a little bit about self-publishing and your decision to keep the 2 different names for 2 different brands? To me, this totally makes sense. But maybe you want to illuminate a little bit about the self-publishing thing, what is involved there, and why do you separate those names for the 2 different genres?
Because it's not a good idea to mix your genres. So these books are fantasy. They're technically urban or cozy fantasy. My other books are crime. They are procedural detective. And if you mix your genres, it gets confusing. It's better to stay separate. Now, I managed to get a website designer who managed to do my website, so it makes complete sense. Self-publishing is a huge learning curve, an enormous learning curve. You can't just do it. You have to be able to write a book, edit, use all the different processes. I use an AI algorithm to edit, and I use a real-life editor. Then you have to format. Again, that's an AI algorithm. It formats, but it's a very creative thing. It takes a long time. And then I upload. So my fantasy books are on Amazon exclusively at the moment, but my crime books are everywhere, including public libraries, and I'm starting to move into bookshops. It's not for everybody. You have to run it like a business where you work 7 days a week. You do your own advertising, your own marketing. It's hard work.
Yeah.
But it's also fun. Because
it's a lot of work, but it's also some people have issues. I mean, we talk about this often to promote themselves. They shy away from it. They feel like, oh, this is a little bit uncouth to constantly like talk about how great I am or whatever. What would you advise these people?
Do what you're comfortable with. I do Amazon. I do Facebook to some extent. I use a lot of Instagram. I use a lot of LinkedIn. But I don't go near TikTok. I hate it. I won't touch it. I've got a mailing list, which is my main advertising platform. People sign up via my website, and I send out an email about every 3 months telling them what's happening. So that's my main way of doing it. It's ramping up very slowly, but it's moving. My crime books are going well on libraries, very well. But the profit I get on libraries isn't so good.
Mm.
My Amazon sales aren't bad, particularly for the cats, which have had a good review. The interesting thing, if you publish with a traditional publisher, you're going to take 15%. I take 75% self-publishing. So it's lucrative.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's
I completely, I'm totally with you. But it suits different personalities, different, what did they say? Different strokes for different folks or whatever it is.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think, but the main thing is, the talking about yourself. So you don't have a problem about with that.
No, not really.
Neither do I. Sorry.
My problem is the places I live, in that I tend not to stay in one country for very long, which can make it very difficult. It was impossible to get a traditional publisher for someone like me who moves about a lot.
Right.
But now I'm settled. I did a complete business plan, complete with all my tax implications and everything, and it's starting to happen. Then I invested $1,000 in a website. Money well spent. It really does work for me. And I taught myself to do Amazon advertising, Facebook advertising. That's quite complicated. I do things like Goodreads. There's lots of things you can do. But the cats do well because they've had good reviews. As I say, I got to the top 100 with University Cat, which I think's the cutest book. These books sit in a new genre, which is cozy fantasy. It's a brand of urban fantasy.
That is funny. That is so cozy fantasy. It's like urban fantasy, but it's less violence, or I don't know if urban.
Much less violent, much more satirical, much more humorous.
I didn't want to suggest. I'm not a genre expert. I'm not saying that urban fantasy is necessarily. I don't know what boxes to tick there. I'm not a genre specialist.
It doesn't have. I don't have any wizards. I have a lot of gargoyles. I like that. And I have cats, which always sell. They always do. So I'm pleased with the new book. It's quite funny. It's mainly funny. But and yes, I do use AI a lot. But that's another story.
And that's fine. And by the way, I don't want to suggest that I am anti playing around with JetGPT or using algorithms for even helping to translate or stuff what you're doing, or copy editing. Sorry, I don't want to occupy the conversation. I just want to make that clear.
It's a working tool.
The issue is much more that existing bureaucracies are really kind of very uncritically adopting a very violent, very discriminatory policy that they already have, and they want to kind of automate that. So that's my issue. But you have to put the website here in the local chat.
Yeah, will do indeed. Although if everybody looks at my profile, they'll find everything sitting there.
You know, Jessica, okay, before I have, publisher Rick Harsh, who was here with, of course, the great Corona Samizdat, Rick Harsh, American living in Slovenia, publisher of the amazing book, America, the Cult of the Cactus Boots, and many other things. And he has a YouTube channel, and I actually think, and I want to throw this at you, and maybe this is something you want to adopt, because he has a YouTube channel where he occasionally just talks randomly. He speaks into the camera, and he talks with this sort of slow, very deliberate, and really kind of to the point. He's my great idol. It's not like me meandering, and he's very funny. And it's just like these 5 to 10 minutes videos, not necessarily about specific books, but he just talks about sort of topics. And then one time he says, "You know what? I realized I'm an influencer," and it's hilarious. And but in the last video, he says, "You know what? The reason why I have this YouTube channel and why this YouTube channel has grown to 400, 400 subscribers over the course of 10 years." And then he laughs at himself and says, "Well, while I'm talking, other people get more subscribers than I get over 10 years." And he says, "This works better for me than writing on Goodreads and sort of trying to, be present on these other platforms." So I'm just wondering, Jessica, if have you thought about doing YouTube videos where your avatar reads excerpts from the book and just trying to get audience there, maybe?
I would have to fight my husband, who is currently monetizing his farm sim game
Oh,
and becoming an influencer on there, and he's ramping that up as his retirement job.
see, you could do that too.
Yeah, well, my plans at the moment is once this book is kicked off and out in the world, it will be advertised, and then I'm going to a book conference in the UK, and then I'm spending the next 6 months finishing off a book of short stories ready for Christmas. So, yeah, I'm busy. But
Okay, so the answer is just too much stuff, and you just gotta
choose what your strengths are.
choose. Absolutely, I agree.
And what worries me with doing a complete business plan is that I have lost time from the creative side.
Yep.
And I wanted to get that back. And I've had a heck of a lot of fun writing Beware the Cat. It's been really, really fun.
Okay, so let's go to the creative then. Let's read, because that's the issue.
A little bit of setup. So Penny, as we know, is a cyber cat. She can do anything, she can go anywhere, and she's got a lot of attitude.
Ooh.
So Penny suddenly found herself in Shakespeare's London. And she's made friends with William Baldwin, who is a writer. Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream is about to be performed at a wedding feast, and Will Baldwin has a part. All these are facts, so I'm playing with historical facts and popping my cat into history. So the only other thing you should know is that in 1596, Shakespeare lived in lodgings that overlooked St. Helens Churchyard near the Leadenhall Market. So here we are. Penny is in the world with Shakespeare, with William Baldwin, and with all sorts of other people who are all real. So here we go. It is St. Valentine's Day, 1596. We are in Elizabethan England. The feast of St. Valentine was approaching, and the young men of London were in a frenzy of romantic composition with an eye to catching a great beauty with a generous dowry and aristocratic connections. It was not just about finding the love of their life, but mostly about having a comfortable future. Young women assumed a gauzy gaze, wishing to be found the object of passion and adoration, whilst hoping not to get stuck for an eternity with a complete beast. William Baldwin had a lot of extra work in the weeks prior to the event. Payments for his passionate poems and letters, confessing to undying love, arrived in the form of baskets of fresh eggs, a newly baked loaf, and some pickled pig's chitlins. These exciting foodstuffs fascinated Penny and improved their diet of bread and mutton. But she was content to watch Will enjoying the chitlins by himself, a noble act of generosity on her part. She preferred the salted strips of bacon that arrived late one night from a potential suitor who did not wish his friends to know he had employed a ghostwriter. There was a lot of laughter as Will read out the professions of love before he delivered them. for this was sent on St. Valentine's Day, when every bird cometh to choose his mate. So a neatly written label prepared in Will's best calligraphy, which accompanied an attractive miniature painting of a fat dove flying over an equally fat country cottage. The young man in a very new velvet tunic took possession of a longer valentine verse, for which Will received a doublet, as the young man had no need of it any longer. Recently, a ginger tomcat had taken to staring at Penny longingly through the window. She regarded as extremely dubious and altogether undesirable. Whatever foolishness was currently possessing the humans, she was pleased to enjoy the fruits of Will's writing skill, had no interest in receiving a love poem or recently deceased mouse arranged artistically for her to discover on the windowsill. She only went out for her necessary excursions among the rooftops in daylight. Checking that the ginger cat was nowhere to be seen, Penny climbed onto the windowsill and made her way to the top of the roof. Elizabethan houses have roofs that are made of bundles of straw or reeds that are piled onto the oak frame. Often they're the only place for animals to go to keep warm, so those that could climb up lived there. If it rained and the thatch became slippery, sometimes the animals would fall off, giving rise to the English saying, "It's raining cats and dogs." Penny stretched out on top of the thatch and moonbathed. She watched the clouds scuttling across the silver face like wisps of smoke over water. It was not too cold. She decided that a time of reflection was necessary. A dark, icy shadow fell on her back, and Penny rolled into a crouch, her muscles tensing as her fur stood on end. She bristled and got ready to attack. Behind her was the big ginger tomcat, sitting upright, holding a small, wriggling mouse in his mouth. Penny had already eaten, and she preferred her food to be quite dead and cooked. She liked her dinner in a dish, too. She stretched up and turned elegantly, and arching her back, swiveled on her toes. Once arranged, she sat down, opened her eyes wide, and coolly regarded her suitor. He had a hapless, devoted look on his face, which seemed quite at odds with the missing ear and whiskers on one side of his head. He was big and clumsy, and clearly knew how to look after himself. His haunches bulged with muscles for jumping and running, and his claws were not as clean as Penny would like. Penny made no movement to take the proffered mouse, so the ginger cat placed it before her and was about to remove its head to allow her to dine, when Penny hissed a warning, and he let go of the poor creature, which escaped into the thatch. Ginger Tom observed her, unsure of what she expected him to do next. He thought she was the most beautiful cat he had ever seen, and decided he would sing for her pleasure. He opened his jaws wide, showing off his missing teeth, and let out a tremendous yowl of operatic quality. Penny kept still, trying not to flinch, while calculating the quickest route back to safety. She was pretty sure she knew what Ginger Tom wanted, and as a cyber cat, she was hardly likely to oblige him. The aria continued, and somewhere from a house opposite there was a clash of saucepans. "Shh!" came an angry voice from the street. Ginger Tom took no notice. He completed the first section of the song and launched enthusiastically into the second part, which contrasted in musical key, mood, and tempo. He was very proud of his voice, and he glanced slyly at Penny, hoping his singing was having the desired effect. Penny allowed herself a slight twitch of the nose in amusement, which she hoped he would think was appreciation. Lining up her whiskers along the route of her intended escape, she would wait until he wound himself up into a frenzy, and then she would bolt. He reached the Da Capo section, delighted that his chosen female understood the rudiments of grand opera, as he intended to fulfill her expectations by improvising variations and ornaments during the third section, to keep it from being a mere repetition of the first part. He was extemporizing with great skill and bravura. His haunched muscles vibrated as he inflated his lungs and increased the volume. A pair of shoes sailed towards him and disappeared over the other side of the building. Opera is one of the most complex styles of singing to master because of the large levels of volume that your body must generate in order to produce the sound. Ginger Tom was performing splendidly. He had never sung so well in his life. Surely his lady would richly reward him. Penny had other ideas, and simply had to wait until this horrible noise ended and the exhausted cat stopped for breath or applause. Ginger Tom reached a cadenza full of ornamentation and embellishment. His last note rang out loud and clear over the rooftops. "Be silent, ya vermin!" The sheer effort of singing so loud now caused Ginger Tom to deflate slowly as his passion subsided, and he relaxed before opening his eyes to receive his reward. There was a satisfied smile on his face as he slowly looked up to see Penny's tail whisk past him on her way down the thatch to the windowsill. She dived inside to see that Will Baldwin had returned and was drinking a cup of ale by the fireside. She settled next to him and purred deeply, expecting a treat to follow. Outside on the rooftop, there was a furious yowl from the disappointed Ginger Tom. He tore at the straw with his claws and sent a family of small rodents scurrying for safety. When he caught them, he would show no mercy. He muttered to himself a favourite line he had heard recently coming from a lodging overlooking St. Helen's churchyard. "The lady doth protest too much, methinks." End of.
Ah, Jessica, that is really awesome. People are liking it. I was just putting it here. There are not enough dogs in this story.
No dogs in this one. There is a fabulous poodle in the university cat.
Okay, I'm sold. God, you're good.
So that's Beware the Cat. It's
Wonderful.
It's
Everybody go to Jessica's website and sign up and pre-order this book.
Yeah. And hope you enjoy it. So that's it from me. Have fun.
I have one more follow-up question.
That's the question.
Yes, because how do you have a time management approach or not? Like, how do you whatever it is, this is one of my trademark broad questions, but maybe just give us one tip how to get stuff done.
Right, it varies. There is only one book you need to read, and that's by Stephen King, On Writing.
Ah, yes. Everybody talks about
It's a
that.
good one.
Okay. Yep.
But you've got two different strands here. You've got writing the first draft, generating the idea. Once you've got it, you've got to get that first draft down, and that is a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got to set yourself huge deadlines. You have to write. I write on average about 2,000 words a day.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to do it until you've got your book.
And so there is no way, because this is something I'm trying to hammer home with folks. You mentioned deadlines. When you are self-employed, not only when you're a writer, but I think this applies to everything. You have to create basically quote unquote artificial deadlines, because you're your own boss and you have to act as such to create these kind of frameworks. And I always tell people you have to write this down on paper, or you put it in Google Calendar. And yes, then you can sort of shift it around, or when you get closer, you're like, oh shit, I need another day. Yeah, then you give yourself another day. But there is no way you can achieve anything if that's what you want. Obviously, if you don't want it, it's a different story. But there are still people in my life who believe creativity needs more freedom, and oh, if I don't feel like it today, I'm just gonna like smoke a doobie in the
It
sunlight.
won't write itself.
Yeah, I
yeah.
need the inspiration to come through me. I said, no, you can channel it. You have to create frameworks to I don't know how to put it. Sometimes
Yeah.
I can't, but right now.
You have your idea, you think about it, you play with it, you write your first draft. That is the big hurdle. Once you've got those 60 to 80,000 words, you've got something to play with.
Yep.
And
if you don't have it, there's nothing for you to play
There's nothing
with.
you can do.
And that's really important. It's not the first thing is not going to be the final thing. The first thing is getting that will get your juices flowing, where then you go, I can play with this. I can change this around, or I shift this over here and there. And to get through this first draft, you have to create a timeline for yourself that you have to adhere to. Otherwise you will never finish.
You'll never
anything.
do it. No.
Yeah.
Once you've got that first draft, then you've got I have between 7 and 10 drafts after that. I do a lot of my own editing before I hand it over to an editor, because then I've done most of the work, which saves me a bit of money. I do my own covers, my own advertising, and while you're writing, you've got to maintain the other books, the advertising, which is really hard work, plus all the other things that you do, which is podcast, book groups, study, lots and lots of study. This book has taken a lot of research, which was great fun. I enjoyed it. But it's first source research, so it's not hearsay from the internet. One of the wonderful things was that Queen Elizabeth I there were detailed records of her diary, all the gifts she received, all the banquets she had. There's so much information, and I used it. I used it a lot. So you've got to go back to first source, because the internet lies to you quite badly. So it's best not use.
Well, there we go back to the algorithm. The problem is also search, because
now search is a bad nightmare.
It's bad. The fact that Google won those search wars and has monopolized it is really a big problem. Yeah.
Shocking. I go through academic sites. Yep. So I can go around it, but Google is hideous. I hate it. But ChatGPT, I write all my advertising copy using ChatGPT.
That's what it's good for. Yeah, I actually know. I don't know if I'm revealing a secret, but
yeah,
the Lyndon that I work with, her name is not boysenberry, but it's similar. She uses ChatGPT, I think, for some copy as well.
I do too. The only problem is it spells in American and I don't. I spell it Australian. It argues with you, and it won't deal with crime. Oh. So if I have material for my crime books, forget it.
What does it say?
It won't let me kill anybody. It tells me off every time I start describing bodies. Yeah, it's totally
That's
useless.
really interesting. I mean, the bureaucratic AI is like, well, you don't, I can't extend your services here, your disability payments because you don't qualify. But on the other hand, I can't talk about crime because that's not nice.
No. And in Elizabethan England, people pissed all over the place.
Hmm.
They did. Fact of life.
Yeah.
It doesn't like that. It tells me I should choose another word, which is ridiculous. Anyway, the whole book goes on. We go to the wedding. We go to what was the first performance of Midsummer Night's Dream. They think it's pretty good evidence for it. And then I mix it up a bit. I'm quite pleased with it. Shakespeare's coming out exactly as I wanted him to. And I had an awful lot of fun. In the front of the book, there is a dramatis personae, just like a play, so you know who people are, you know who's real, you know who's not. And so I'm hoping this one will do well.
All right, so everybody, I'm not on Amazon, and I hope that maybe there's another place. Smashwords, isn't there? I think
This
smashwords.com.
ones won't be on Smashwords. My crime books are. These ones stay on Amazon now for the rest of the year because I use Kindle Unlimited.
Okay, so it's
I
a
get
kind of an
paid by the read.
exclusivity deal.
Yeah. But my
Okay.
crime books are out there. You can get my crime books in the public library.
Speaking of crime, I just realized that Valencia Sky Tower, I don't know if the camera, she had a gun, but yeah, I'm not sure, Valencia, what's going on here? You and your cats and your gun. Oh, she has the gun back. Be careful what you say.
Oh, yeah. Scary. Bang, bang. Yeah. Yeah, the biggest problem. Okay, all good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Jessica, thank you. Everybody sign up with
Yes,
Jessica's website. It's in the local chat. Let's put it back in the local chat. Wait, I have it here. Has, again, that different name that I don't know who that may be.
That's me. That's the real me.
Oh, the real me. 16 years I try to convince people that it's not the difference between real and virtual, it's the difference between digital and physical. But anyways, I want to say thank you as well, and I'm going to cut it brutally because I'm going to go back to some more editing for the Second Life birthday movie. Thank you, everyone, and we'll keep the free-for-all at the 11 o'clock hour. If you're confused, please just look at the calendar or look at the calendar is the best. I will also send I'll send a group notice. I won't forget. Now, where was I? Yes, we have three more guests, and then there's the summer break. And I said last time when I end here, I did say last time that after the summer break, where I will be here sort of informally. I don't know if I'm gonna stream, but I'm gonna hang out and we'll talk about stuff. But I cannot promise to do a show per month. I'm just gonna, do it very loosely. I've talked about it many times. It's just too much work. I cannot afford the work time-wise to prep and bring the authors in and do the booking and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it feels I'm somewhat sad, but I really need to free up that time. If anybody is interested in doing a weekly program, you're totally welcome. You can do whatever you want here. Just ping me in IM, and I'll give you, res rights, and we'll talk about the modus operandi. Of course, you have to be ideologically aligned with me, otherwise you will be blocked, because this is a dictatorship of the proletariat, which is me. I am the proletariat. No, but please, yeah, think about it and just get in touch with me. Um, you can take, we have 4 islands. You can also, we'll probably have, we don't have a lot of prims left, but I'll clean up a little bit as well. So there's even opportunity to build stuff, as long as it's along the themes of the book and not some private club where you do all sorts of debaucherous things. Although Pier Paolo Pasolini, one of my favorite authors, if you reenact his movie, The 120 Days of Sodom, I don't want to get a mature rate. Oh, we have a moderate rating. We get an adult rating. Anyways, blah, blah, blah. Let's cut it here and have a fabulous one. And let me check on YouTube. Kitten on YouTube. I don't know if Kitten is still watching, but thank you, everybody. And please think about the AI thing. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can have fun with ChatGPT, but we have to really be very aware of encoding a society that is not a just society, that is a hierarchical society that discriminates on the basis of all sorts of things. And even well-meaning folks, well, what is that thing? The path to hell is paved with good intentions. This book is really good. I did a bad job explaining, I think, what the issues are here, but the book is better. See, this is one of those things interesting, where you understand something, and then the next step is to explain it to someone. So then you realize, wait a minute, I can't explain it. It's so clear to me, but I can't articulate it. So those are two different things. Katsumi, Little Brad Stranger, Jessica, Valencia, Tsai, Water, himself a published author. I don't know, does he publish physical or ebook only? Shyla, Monkey, The Resistor, Isabel, Elian, Teddy, and here in the back, Boardroom Catering, and Tabby. And I think Dex Euromet may have left. I have to message him. I hope he wasn't offended. I didn't intentionally read this about Poland to make him feel bad. I can differentiate between a totalitarian government and the people who are suffering under that government. It's not the same thing. There's a difference in the power, right, between authoritarian leadership and the people who are suppressed by that leadership, although they may share the same nationality. Am I right? Am I wrong?